Chapter 941, Stopping the Fight. This is the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline of the Tai family. Sacred Lord 100 Refined was stunned, and he pulled away from Zhao Feng. Being someone from one of the 8 big families just like the Tai family, he understood it very well. The perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline was the nemesis of close combat, and he finally understood why Tai Hongnan had invited Zhao Feng to the 4th Prince's Hall and wanted to speak to him. Zhao Feng had the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline, a battle-type bloodline that could be ranked within the top 10 Imperial Dao bloodlines. His sacred body was countered by the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline to a certain degree. Even if Cao Zhang used a heaven-grade skill to the maximum, Zhao Feng could just use his Blood Devil Sun bloodline and physical defense to exhaust him to death. This meant that, if the fight dragged out, the loser would be Cao Zhang. Furthermore, Zhao Feng still had the mysterious eye bloodline that he hadn't even used yet. Ji Dengshan's illusions had no effect on Zhao Feng, and he was actually frightened by Zhao Feng's soul technique instead. Ji Dengshan didn't even dare to do anything at the moment. From this, one could see that Zhao Feng's soul eye bloodline technique could definitely threaten sacred lords. On top of all that, Zhao Feng was also a beast tamer and definitely had many spiritual pets, including the cloud silkworm Saint Butterfly, which was a member of the 10,000 ancient races. Thinking up to here, Cao Zhang lost the will to fight. He could only use 40% of his full power right now. Why was this junior so troublesome? Ji Bei and Ji Dengshan, the other members of his group, were completely useless. Zhao Feng, stop. Cao Zhang signaled with his right hand. Even if he could have used his full battle power, Cao Zhang didn't dare to kill Zhao Feng after learning that he had the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline. The Tai family was the strongest family of the 8 big families. If he killed the holder of the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline, he might cause a war between the Tai family and the Cao family. Furthermore, it wasn't a guaranteed win even if he wanted to kill Zhao Feng. It didn't matter whether Sacred Lord 100 Refined won or lost, it would make Zhao Feng famous either way. We don't know what kind of danger there is ahead of us. Why don't we team up and talk after we pass the inheritance? Sacred Lord 100 Refined felt slightly awkward and had to use this excuse to stop the fight. Zhao Feng's usefulness was comparable to a Sacred Lord, and he was definitely much more useful than the other 2 members in his group. Ji Dengshan was still in utter shock from the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline and Sacred Lord 100 Refined's invitation. He didn't think that a late-stage King Jr. could force them into a situation like this. Beast Tamer Ji Bei was forced to use the Dragon Jade's array and escape, and his own eye bloodline techniques were completely useless against Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng even copied his technique and used it to humiliate him. The Sacred Lord and his group had lost face and decided to stop fighting. Ji Dengshan could tell that if the fight continued, Sacred Lord 100 Refined's chance of winning wasn't very high. He regretted his actions, maybe it was because his journey of cultivation had been too smooth, but he didn't even believe what his own family's Grand Elder said. Zhao Feng paused for a moment. He felt extremely satisfied during the fight, but Sacred Lord 100 Refined had apparently lost the will to battle. Zhao Feng went silent for a moment after thinking about the 4 figures that had entered a moment ago. I want 70% of the inheritance, Zhao Feng said in a decisive tone, causing Sacred Lord 100 Refined's eyebrows to furrow and his mouth to twitch. This junior's appetite wasn't just big. Sacred Lord 100 Refined's group had 2 people, but one Zhao Feng wanted 70% of the cut? I'll take 30% then, Cao Zhang said through gritted teeth before looking at Ji Dengshan. Ji Dengshan instantly gave a helpless and bitter smile. He knew what Sacred Lord 100 Refined meant, he would have no share of the Imperial Sky inheritance. I'll open the way for us, Zhao Feng said. He wanted 70% because Sacred Lord 100 Refined wasn't of much use to him since he could clear the inheritance on his own. He only wanted help to stop those 4 that had just entered. It would be a big loss if Zhao Feng forced Sacred Lord 100 Refined to the brink and caused him to join forces with the 4 that just arrived. Sure. Sacred Lord 100 Refined paused for a moment. Bam. Bam. Countless sandstone monsters swarmed over like a flood. While Zhao Feng and Sacred Lord 100 Refined were fighting, the sandstone monsters arrived and attacked them, but the shockwaves from their fight were able to instantly kill the sandstone monsters that got too close. Now that they had stopped fighting, these monsters charged over once again. Zhao Feng stood in the center of the pathway and faced the sandstone monsters. His consciousness touched the mysterious golden ball in the dimension of his left eye. Zhao Feng's left eye instantly became golden and released a surge of strong eye intent and soul power. The expressions of Ji Dengshan and Sacred Lord Hundred Refined instantly became solemn. What strong soul intent! Ji Dengshan's face was filled with shock. He didn't know how much the dimension was suppressing Zhao Feng, so he couldn't accurately estimate how strong Zhao Feng's soul intent was. Why is he choosing to use an eye bloodline technique to get rid of the Sandstone monsters? Could it be that his eye bloodline technique is actually more biased toward physical aspects? Sacred Lord Hundred Refined was puzzled. Wang tilde. An enormous ring of faint golden light shot out of Zhao Feng's left eye, and it seemed to contain the laws of the world. It passed through the center of the pathway and went through all of the Sandstone monsters and reached an unknown distance. Nothing happened even after a long time. It just passed through the Sandstone monsters. Could it be a soul attack? While Sacred Lord Hundred Refined didn't really understand the soul, only soul attacks could pass through physical objects. What kind of eye bloodline technique was that? Could it be the one Ji Vuye talked about? Ji Dengshan wasn't able to see what kind of eye bloodline technique it was or what its uses were even with his experience and knowledge. However, what happened next stunned them. All the Sandstone monsters that had come into contact with the enormous golden ring of light disappeared into thin air. An empty path had been created with just one glance from Zhao Feng. There was a very faint yellow mist in the center of the pathway. Zhao Feng closed his left eye and recovered the energy he had just used. These Sandstone monsters were products of the Sacred Lord's little world, so the atoms were only of one element and were rather crudely constructed. Zhao Feng only needed to completely analyze the structure of one atom before he could disintegrate all of them. However, this was the first time he had disintegrated such a large amount of something, and Zhao Feng felt tired despite his huge quantity of eye intent. However, he had achieved his goals. The first was to conquer the inheritance, obtaining the resources and the draconic providence. If he wanted to run after that, no one would be able to stop him. The second was to scare Sacred Lord Hundred Refined. While Sacred Lord Hundred Refined had temporarily decided to work with him for now, Zhao Feng still couldn't completely trust him, so Zhao Feng needed something to scare Sacred Lord Hundred Refined to the point that he wouldn't be willing to become an enemy. Let's go. Zhao Feng gave a faint smile. This is... Sacred Lord Hundred Refined's mind went blank. He couldn't understand what happened even with his experience and knowledge. What kind of power was that faint golden light? It instantly made countless Sandstone monsters disappear into thin air. His eyes couldn't see how far the golden light traveled or how many Sandstone monsters disappeared. If this was just the ability of some kind of space technique, Sacred Lord Hundred Refined could accept it, but he didn't feel any disturbance in space. He suddenly had a thought: what would have happened if that beam of light had shone onto his body in a fight? Thinking up to there, his soul started to tremble. This also made Ji Dengshan act like he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. He remembered what Ji Vuye had said: Zhao Feng's eye bloodline techniques can make physical and soul-based objects completely disappear. Zhao Feng walked at the front, and countless black-striped scorpions with fierce auras filled the pathway. While most of the Sandstone monsters had been disintegrated by Zhao Feng's eye bloodline technique, the path was very broad, so the Sandstone monsters on the edges still remained. They didn't have any intelligence and didn't know what fear was, they only charged toward and attacked the outsiders. Zhang. Under the leadership of the Scorpion King, all the venomous scorpions swarmed forward and opened the path for Zhao Feng. These beasts are from the ancient dimension. Ji Dengshan exclaimed. Ji Bei was the beast tamer in Sacred Lord Hundred Refined's group, and they had planned to tame beasts at the beginning, but it was extremely difficult to do so even with the help of Sacred Lord Hundred Refined suppressing the beast leaders. The addition of Ji Dengshan wasn't enough to handle the other beasts either, so their plan to tame beasts failed. They never would have thought that Zhao Feng and Zhou Suer would be able to tame a group of beasts, and not just any beasts, but beasts with very high battle power. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined looked at the figure of Zhao Feng's back and knew that this person was not to be offended. Just like that, the experts from the Cao and Qi families followed behind Zhao Feng and entered the depths of the inheritance. They flew for a long time before they suddenly felt like the number of Sandstone monsters had increased dramatically. In other words, Zhao Feng's mysterious eye bloodline technique had reached this far before dissipating. Without Zhao Feng saying anything, Sacred Lord Hundred Refined went to the front and opened the way for them. With the combined forces of the venomous scorpions and a Sacred Lord, they soon saw the end of the Imperial Sky inheritance. This pathway was probably close to 100 miles long. Zhao Feng, there's a Sacred Lord rank Sandstone monster ahead. Let's go. Sacred Lord 100 Refined had a grim expression. There was an enormous sandstone monster the size of a small mountain ahead of them blocking the way. Okay. Zhao Feng circulated his sacred lightning body and became taller. He released a layer of golden blue lightning and crushed everything in his way. Boom. Blazing Sky Force Fist. Zhao Feng and Sacred Lord 100 Refined charged forward, and there were flashes of black, red, and golden light. A powerful blow destroyed everything ahead. He has the ability to regenerate. Part of the sandstone monster's body was destroyed by their attack and turned into sand, but the fallen sand seemed to be attracted by something, and it merged back into the sandstone monster's body and recovered. As long as it still has the sand, it will never die. Zhao Feng opened his left eye and inspected the sandstone monster. Zhao Feng's left eye saw something that others couldn't, and he revealed the joyful expression. The structure of atoms in the Sacred Lord rank sandstone monster is not much different from the others. Wang tilde. Zhao Feng's left eye released a brilliant flash of gold that passed through the area he figured the monster's heart would be. Who? The part where the gold light passed through disappeared after a while, revealing 3 sparkling crystal pearls. Zhao Feng waved his left hand, and the 3 substandard god crystals flew over and were stored in Zhao Feng's misty spatial world. Boom. The instant the substandard god crystals were taken away, the entire sandstone monster turned into sand and spread across the ground. Chapter 942, Reward. Substandard God Crystal. Ji Dengshan exclaimed. Substandard God crystals were legendary primal crystal stones even in the continent zone, and they were used by mystic light realm sacred lords to cultivate. Sacred Lord 100 Refined was also extremely attracted by it. He only had a few himself, and those were obtained through very dangerous circumstances. Sacred Lord 100 Refined almost couldn't resist the temptation to immediately attack Zhao Feng after seeing him obtain 3 so easily. Zhao Feng, you get 70% of the inheritance while I get 30%. What's the meaning of you taking all 3 crystals away? Sacred Lord 100 Refined immediately questioned. We are splitting the inheritance 70 to 30. This is my reward for killing the monster, Zhao Feng snickered coldly and said. He hadn't thought that this Sacred Lord level sandstone monster would have 3 substandard god crystals either. It was most likely a hidden reward. One had to know that Zhao Feng had destroyed the inheritances of 3 beginning stage Sacred Lords and only received 1 substandard god crystal total. After all, Sacred Lords needed substandard god crystals to cultivate, so no Sacred Lord would mind having too many. From the fact that Zhao Feng received 3 in one go, one could see that this inheritance wasn't simple. You. Sacred Lord 100 Refined was speechless. Indeed, these 3 substandard god crystals were just the core of the sandstone monster and didn't belong to the inheritance proper. Zhao Feng's aggressiveness made Sacred Lord 100 Refined feel like Zhao Feng wasn't scared of anything right now. There should be many more substandard god crystals in the inheritance of a late-stage mystic light realm Sacred Lord. Sacred Lord 100 Refined could only think like this. Who tilde? The instant the sandstone monster crumbled, the trio proceeded forward. There was a large empty lounge ahead. There were no decorations anywhere apart from some golden drawings on the nearby walls. The instant the trio appeared, a surge of draconic providence entered the dragon jades on their bodies, but it quickly stopped. This draconic providence? Sacred Lord 100 Refined was puzzled. The amount of draconic providence was a lot smaller than what they were imagining. It didn't even reach the level of an early-stage Sacred Lord's inheritance. Could it be that the information was wrong and that this place wasn't the inheritance of a late-stage Sacred Lord? But according to what they had encountered along the way, the difficulty of this inheritance definitely exceeded that of an early-stage Sacred Lord. Without Zhao Feng's mysterious eye bloodline technique, Sacred Lord 100 Refined's group would have found it difficult to ever make it this far. That's... Ji Dengshan looked upward. They were all instantly attracted by 3 floating balls of water and light in the air. Golden light shone and lit up the place. Congratulations on passing the trial, but since no one suits the requirements to become the inheritor, I will be giving 3 treasures instead. A mysterious voice reverberated throughout the lounge, as if it was the intent of heaven and earth itself. This is the power of intent. Ji Dengshan's face was filled with shock. This is just an incomplete remnant intent of the little world. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined was first in shock, but he soon let out a breath. Intent of a little world? Zhao Feng was surprised. This was the first time he had heard about such a thing. When the little world becomes strong and stable enough, the Sacred Lord will imprint their own intent into the little world, turning it into a sort of manager. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined only gave one sentence of explanation, probably because he didn't know too much himself. Manager? When Zhao Feng thought about managers, he remembered the little thieving cat within the little world of the misty spatial world. It was like a manager. It looked after the green water sky lotuses, the spiritual flesh snow jade lotus roots, the 5 poison distinct bees, and various other things. From the looks of it, the remnant little world intent is still following the wishes of the Sacred Lord when they were alive to choose an inheritor. Zhao Feng touched the bottom of his chin. He could understand why there wasn't much draconic providence. That's right. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined paused for a moment. He didn't expect Zhao Feng to understand so quickly since Zhao Feng was only at the late stages of the Void God realm and most likely didn't even have a little world yet. The three paused for a moment. If this was a normal inheritance, they would be able to obtain all the resources as long as they passed the test, but this inheritance was different. There was a remnant little world intent here that was following the wishes of its master, and it was still managing this dimension. This meant that the three of them could only obtain whatever was in the 3 balls of watering light. If they wanted to receive everything, they would have to destroy the intent of a late-stage mystic light realm. However, that was obviously impossible. As soon as they attacked, the remnant intent would utilize the power of the entire little world to crush them in an instant. This meant that there was nothing else they could do at this point but accept their reward. Zhao Feng carefully inspected the 3 balls of watering light. There was a book named The Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique within the first ball of watering light. Behind it was a red flower in the shape of a clown's face, and the final one contained 10 substandard god crystals. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined started to think. According to their deal, Sacred Lord Hundred Refined could only obtain one of the 3 golden balls of water and light. He didn't know anything about the red flower shaped like a clown face or the Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique, so he couldn't estimate their value, but he could roughly guess based on the 10 substandard god crystals next to them. The value of these 2 items shouldn't be lower than 10 substandard god crystals, but everything depended on how useful it was to the recipient. For example, if an inheritance contained nothing but spears, it wouldn't be very useful in the eyes of a sword cultivator. Zhao Feng, how about I take the Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique and you take the other 2? Sacred Lord Hundred Refined asked. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined ignored the red flower shaped like a clown face. Being someone from a family that specialized in battle techniques, he was more interested in the Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique. He already had a few substandard god crystals, and there was still a lot of time left in the Imperial tombs, so there was still plenty of time to obtain more substandard god crystals. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed. Of the 3, only the 10 substandard god crystals were slightly valuable to him. Zhao Feng's 5 elemental wind lightning technique was already one of the best techniques in the world, so the Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique was basically useless to Zhao Feng, and the red flower in the shape of a clown's face obviously belonged to the Tao of Ghost Corpses. All in all, Zhao Feng wasn't very satisfied by the rewards of this inheritance. Seeing Zhao Feng furrow his eyebrows, Sacred Lord Hundred Refined cried out in his heart, could it be that Zhao Feng wants the Imperial Sky Chi Absorption Technique as well? Of the 3 items, the most useless one was the red flower. Sacred Lord Hundred Refined was just about to negotiate with Zhao Feng, but the latter suddenly agreed. Okay, let's take the treasures. Zhao Feng immediately leapt up and reached out toward the 10 substandard god crystals with a claw. This ball of water and light? Zhao Feng's expression changed. When his power touched the ball of water and light, he had a feeling similar to when Xin Wuhang had used softness to counter his explosive power in the divine illusion dimension. Zhao Feng's strength was dissolved and redirected by a mysterious intent of water when it touched the ball of water and light. It looked like it wasn't something that just anyone could take. On the other side, Sacred Lord Hundred Refined didn't succeed either. There's no time left. Zhao Feng circulated his Blood Devil Sun bloodline, and a surge of glass-like fire appeared around his body. It gave off a scorching and terrifying aura like he was the sun itself as it released a surge of flames. Sacred Lightning Dominating Punch. Zhao Feng thrust his fists, and waves of red flaming lightning shot out like miniature suns toward the ball of water and light. Wang tilde. Zhao Feng's attack was redirected by the ball of water and light, but the ignition effect of the Blood Devil Sun bloodline couldn't be redirected. Whoom. The entire ball of water and light ignited and disappeared within an instant. Fire can counter water too. Zhao Feng revealed a faint smile as he put the 10 substandard god crystals into the misty spatial world. Sacred Lord 100 refined eyes lit up as he used a fire elemental technique, and soon, he broke through the ball of water and light and obtained the Imperial Sky Chi absorption technique. Leave all your treasures behind, a ghastly, forceful voice sounded from the pathway. Another group is here. Ji Dengshan's expression changed, but he relaxed after looking at Sacred Lord 100 refined and Zhao Feng. They didn't need to be scared of any normal group. Boom. Boom. A surge of black flames suddenly appeared, transforming into a figure in black with a nasty expression and wearing a black crown. 9 Darkness Palace, Sacred Lord Black Demon. Sacred Lord 100 refine's expression changed. Zhao Feng. Sacred Lord Black Demon roared in anger as the black flames around his body surged like he was about to attack. At the same time, 3 more people arrived. 3 quasi-sacred lords. Ji Dengshan instantly swallowed his spit. He didn't think that this would be a group from the 13th Prince's team. Ji Dengshan had no confidence after seeing this terrifying group consisting of Sacred Lord Black Demon and 3 quasi-sacred lords. That's the 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower. An elder in purple and black robes instantly exclaimed as he looked at the precious herb within the ball of water and light with a fiery gaze. 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower. Sacred Lord Black Demon's gaze moved away from Zhao Feng and looked upward. His heart rate suddenly increased. Zhao Feng, the 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower isn't useful to you. Give it to me, and I won't trouble you over 9 Darkness Palace matters today. Sacred Lord Black Demon's expression was grim as he looked at the 3 in front of him. It was obvious that the 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower was part of the spoils of war from Zhao Feng and Sacred Lord 100 refined. If Sacred Lord Black Demon tried to take it by force, Sacred Lord 100 refined would be on Zhao Feng's side, so Sacred Lord Black Demon used his words. As long as either Zhao Feng or Sacred Lord 100 refined agreed, it would be okay. Sure. How about we discuss the enmity between 9 Darkness Palace and me back on the continent zone? Zhao Feng gave a faint smile and moved back a couple steps, giving space to Sacred Lord Black Demon. Sacred Lord Black Demon paused for a moment. He hadn't thought that Zhao Feng would agree so easily, but he didn't care too much. The 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower was the most important issue right now. Who tilde? Sacred Lord Black Demon turned into a ball of black flames and swept toward the ball of water and light, aiming to destroy it. However, a little gray cat suddenly appeared in the ball of water and light. It laughed at him and took the 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower away. Cat? Sacred Lord Black Demon revealed a surprised and puzzled look. Why was there suddenly a cat in the ball of water and light? Not good. Sacred Lord Black Demon suddenly remembered something. The next second, the little thieving cat disappeared from the ball of water and lightning. At the same time, a pair of scarlet wings of lightning spread behind Zhao Feng's back, and he turned into a bolt of red and white lightning that shot into the pathway. The 3 quasi-sacred lords didn't even have the time to react. It was obvious that Zhao Feng and the little thieving cat had planned this in advance. They were never planning to give the flower to Sacred Lord Black Demon from the start. Zhao Feng. Sacred Lord Black Demon roared as he turned into a ball of black flames and shot directly into the pathway as well. Chapter 943, Sacred Lord Black Demon. Zhao Feng. Sacred Lord Black Demon roared as he turned into a ball of black flames and shot directly into the pathway as well. The other members of Sacred Lord Black Demon's group immediately followed him after recovering from the shock. Ha ha ha, as expected of Zhao Feng. Sacred Lord 100 refined roared with laughter. He could do nothing about Zhao Feng, so he felt extremely satisfied after seeing Sacred Lord Black Demon being toyed around with by Zhao Feng too. Sacred Lord Black Demon was the strongest beginning stage Mystic Light Realm Sacred Lord from 9 Darkness Palace, and he apparently had the ability to attempt a breakthrough to the early stages of the Mystic Light Realm. The 3 Life Evil Ghost Flower was originally Zhao Feng's, and it had nothing to do with Sacred Lord 100 refined. Sacred Lord 100 refined and Ji Dengshan felt a lot more relaxed after Zhao Feng attracted the 13th Prince's group away. Sacred Lord 100 Refined didn't want to be Sacred Lord Black Demon's enemy if he could help it. 9 Darkness Palace was a peak 3-star power that had once been a 4-star force. Their strength was even higher than the 8 big families. 9 Darkness Palace had 2 spots in the Crown Prince trial, Sacred Lord Black Demon and Quasi-Sacred Lord Xipeng. If his guesses were correct, Sacred Lord Black Demon definitely had that item on him. A bolt of scarlet and white lightning flashed through the dark pathway like a meteor. Zhao Feng ate some parts of a green water sky lotus as he moved. If it was some other force, Zhao Feng wouldn't mind giving away the 3-life evil ghost flower since it was useless to him anyway, but definitely not to 9 Darkness Palace. Besides, even if he was willing, how could Zhao Feng believe anything Sacred Lord Black Demon said? Zhao Feng, as long as you hand over the 3-life evil ghost flower, I promise that I won't attack you in the Crown Prince trial, Sacred Lord Black Demon's voice sounded. Sacred Lord Black Demon, stop spewing your garbage. Zhao Feng harumphed coldly and increased his speed. He wasn't scared of anyone in the Crown Prince trial. Humph, if that's the case, then you won't be able to leave the Imperial tombs. Sacred Lord Black Demon gave up on trying to communicate. Rapid black ink. The dark flames around Sacred Lord Black Demon's body suddenly exploded, and Sacred Lord Black Demon seemed to slide through the air. The resistance he faced was reduced dramatically. Zhao Feng's expression paused for a moment when he saw Sacred Lord Black Demon closing the gap. Lightning wings spatial flash. Zhao Feng's wings flashed, and his speed increased once more. He turned into a bolt of scarlet lightning that seemed to merge into the air, and it would appear a bit further away with every blink. Not good, my spatial flying technique is suppressed here. Zhao Feng's expression was ugly. His spatial flying technique was suppressed while Sacred Lord Black Demon's secret technique wasn't affected as much. However, it was impossible for Sacred Lord Black Demon to catch up to him within a short amount of time. Whoosh! A bolt of scarlet lightning and a pitch-black demonic figure traveled through the pathway at alarming speed. The exit. A tiny bit of light could be seen ahead. Who tilde? Zhao Feng charged out of the pathway and flew into the sky. Zhou Suer's not here. Zhao Feng looked around. Sacred Lord Black Demon most likely didn't dare to do anything against Zhou Suer. At worst, he only forced her to use the array within the dragon jade. At this moment, a pitch-black demonic figure slid out of the pathway. Wind lightning eye flame. A half-transparent ball of fire and the destructive aura of God Tribulation lightning whistled down onto Sacred Lord Black Demon's body. Wang tilde. The black crown on Sacred Lord Black Demon's head gave off a black light, and a layer of light covered Sacred Lord Black Demon's body. The soul attack that Sacred Lord Black Demon faced was weakened. However, while he was able to completely block Zhao Feng's soul flame with the power of his Sacred Lord level soul, he couldn't block the power of God Tribulation lightning. Boom. Sacred Lord Black Demon's soul and black crown were damaged to a certain degree. The laws of destruction. Sacred Lord Black Demon's expression changed. The laws of destruction existed to destroy completely, and such injuries were hard to recover from. Even the regeneration ability of undying bodies would be limited. Sacred lightning dominating body. Zhao Feng's figure grew taller and radiated a layer of golden blue. He seemed to transform into a giant tower of golden lightning that suppressed everything with its physical strength. The main reason Zhao Feng had moved so quickly was to heck on Zhou Suer. Given his advantage in terms of the dimension's suppression, Zhao Feng wasn't actually scared of Sacred Lord Black Demon. If you want to fight, then let's fight, Sacred Lord Black Demon. Zhao Feng turned into a streak of scarlet golden lightning and crushed over like a mountain. Demonic flame sacred power. Sacred Lord Black Demon harumphed coldly and thrust out his palm. A beam of darkness almost passed through space as it moved toward Zhao Feng. Zhao Feng's heart went cold. He felt like his body, soul, and even the air around him had been locked onto. This offensive style was exactly the same as the 9 Darkness Demonic Lord. Sacred Lightning Protection. Zhao Feng merged the physical power of his Sacred Lightning body and the power of his Wind Lightning together. Whoosh! A condensed barrier of lightning instantly appeared. It gave off a glowing golden light that blocked this dark beam. Lightning crackled and thunder boomed around the surface of the lightning barrier. Zhao Feng's eyes became grim. The battle power being displayed by Sacred Lord Black Demon was much stronger than what Sacred Lord 100 Refined could do. Sacred Lord Black Demon also specialized in speed, and he didn't fight against Zhao Feng in close combat. Boom. A layer of glass-like fire instantly appeared around Zhao Feng's body, and a scorching aura appeared. It was as if Zhao Feng had become the sun. Zhao Feng's body became covered in fire, and with the addition of the sacred lightning body, he looked like a flaming demonic sovereign. Whoosh! The wings behind Zhao Feng's back fluttered as he charged down and thrust out his fist. Since Sacred Lord Black Demon wasn't willing to fight in close combat against Zhao Feng, then he would just give up on defense and first close in on Sacred Lord Black Demon. Boom! With the addition of the perfect Blood Devil Sun bloodline, Zhao Feng's speed instantly increased as he charged toward Sacred Lord Black Demon. You're indeed related to the Tai family. But don't think that Nine Darkness Palace will be scared of the Tai family. Sacred Lord Black Demon snickered and laughed as he stood there. Sacred Lord Black Demon thrust out another palm, and the beam of black light arrived before Zhao Feng. Boom. Zhao Feng's speed didn't decrease. He circulated his sacred lightning body and took Sacred Lord Black Demon's attack head-on with the help of the Blood Devil Sun bloodline. Wang tilde. The barrier of lightning was shattered and a surge of golden light was reflected back, but it wasn't able to damage Sacred Lord Black Demon. The weakened black flame's sacred power landed on Zhao Feng, but he wasn't scared at all. Lightning Wing's spatial flash. Zhao Feng's speed suddenly increased, and he became a bolt of lightning that appeared before Sacred Lord Black Demon. He then punched down with his fist. Junior, I was waiting for you to come over. Sacred Lord Black Demon revealed an overjoyed expression as the black flames around his body erupted like a volcano. An invisible force completely suppressed Zhao Feng. Not good. Zhao Feng felt that something was wrong. He didn't think that Sacred Lord Black Demon still had another move left, but since he had already punched out, he couldn't retreat. He could only use his scarlet wings of lightning to push himself to the side. It's too late, Zhao Feng. The darkness around Sacred Lord Black Demon's body seemed to merge into the air and block out the sun. Everything within 1,000 miles became dark, and one could see wicked and chaotic images within it. Little world? Your strength? Zhao Feng revealed a stunned expression. Due to the suppression of this ancient dimension, normal emperors and sacred lords weren't really able to use their little worlds at all. Furthermore, the aura that Sacred Lord Black Demon was currently releasing made Zhao Feng's heart shake. That's right. Normal emperors can, at most, only use 50% of their total strength here, while sacred lords can only use 60%. But did you really think that Nine Darkness Palace wouldn't be prepared for that? Sacred Lord Black Demon roared with laughter. Hearing that, Zhao Feng felt that Sacred Lord Black Demon's words made sense. Zhao Feng himself was only a late-stage king. If it wasn't for the fact that he was used to the ancient aura of the ancient dream realm, he would only be able to use 40% of his full power right now. After adapting to this place, Zhao Feng could now use 60% of his full power, but the aura that Sacred Lord Black Demon was displaying definitely exceeded the 60% limit of sacred lords. Ha ha ha, Nine Darkness Palace paid a huge price and a dozen millennia of preparations to create a treasure that could allow one to adapt to the laws of this dimension. Sacred Lord Black Demon felt extremely smug when he saw Zhao Feng's panicking expression. I can now use almost 80% of my full power. Apart from the other sacred lords that have the same kind of treasure, no one is my match. Sacred Lord Black Demon's eyes sparkled with a black light as he waved his hand and controlled a few wisps of this dimension's laws. The dimension's restriction and the power of the little world instantly made Zhao Feng unable to move, and he found it hard to breathe. Zhao Feng, die. Sacred Lord Black Demon used a technique from the Nine Darkness Sacred Scroll and thrust his palm out. A beam of black light instantly appeared in front of Zhao Feng. It was as if this attack had come from directly in front of Zhao Feng, and with the addition of the little world's power, it had become even stronger. Spatial movement. A whirlpool appeared in front of Zhao Feng. Shu tilde. A part of the black beam that was about to land on Zhao Feng suddenly disappeared. The rest of the beam split into two and scraped past Zhao Feng's shoulders. Spatial movement? This kind of usage of space. Sacred Lord Black Demon paused for a moment. Nothing had been said about this in the reports on Zhao Feng. His expression suddenly changed, as if he had sensed something. Boom. The part of the beam that had disappeared sliced past his head and caused a wisp of black blood to flow out. Ridiculous. Sacred Lord Black Demon roared in anger. Although this attack wasn't very effective against his demonic Tao sacred body, He had never felt such humiliation from being injured by his own attack. Dark demonic sacred power. Sacred Lord Black Demon waved his hands, and countless rays of light started to surround Zhao Feng. It was almost as if they actually had life. Sacred Lord Black Demon wasn't dumb, he knew that Zhao Feng could only use spatial movement over a small range. This next move will force you to use the array. Then, the next time I meet you will be your death. Sacred Lord Black Demon gave a wicked laughter. He was like a peerless demonic god as he stood in the world of darkness. At this moment in time, the 3 other members of Sacred Lord Black Demon's group had rushed out from the Imperial Sky Inheritance. So strong. The face of a doctor from the Duanmu family was filled with shock. Humph. Underestimating 9 Darkness Palace will result in death. Zai Ping, who wore purple and black robes, snickered coldly as he looked at Zhao Feng being trapped by Sacred Lord Black Demon. Chapter 944, Black Wind Canyon. This next move will force you to use the array. Then, the next time I meet you will be your death. Sacred Lord Black Demon gave a wicked laughter. He was like a peerless demonic god as he stood in the world of darkness. Zhao Feng had a grim expression. He indeed hadn't thought that Sacred Lord Black Demon would have a rare treasure that could allow him to adapt to this ancient dimension. This obviously wasn't the first time the Crown Prince trial was being held. Back in the day, the pressure of this ancient dimension was probably even stronger, so the peak forces of the continent had started to develop something in order to deal with it. A treasure that could allow someone to adapt to the ancient dimension had most likely only appeared during the last couple trials. Furthermore, this wasn't something that any random force could have. This meant that the geniuses of the Yu family, the Tai family, and some of the other top forces should have this treasure as well. This gave Zhao Feng a warning. Facing a Sacred Lord of the Demonic Tao who could use 80% of his full battle power, Zhao Feng wasn't certain he could win even if he used all of his trump cards. He had used too much true yuan fighting against Sacred Lord 100 refined in the Imperial Sky Inheritance, and he exhausted a lot of his intent to pass through the Imperial Sky Inheritance. The strength of 9 Darkness Palace wasn't to be underestimated. Sacred Lord Black Demon had definitely prepared a lot, such as the defensive soul item on his head and the treasure that could allow one to adapt to this ancient dimension. There were also 3 quasi-sacred lords in his group as well. The situation was looking very bad for Zhao Feng. Since Zhao Feng was in the range of Sacred Lord Black Demon's little world, he couldn't use the teleportation skill of his misty spatial world either. Without any hesitation, Zhao Feng used the hidden array within the dragon jade. Wang tilde. A complex and profound array spread from the dragon jade. Zhao Feng's body was covered in a flash of light before disappearing. Humph, the next time I meet you is when you shall die. Sacred Lord Black Demon had a cold expression, and the 3 below felt regretful, but there was nothing they could do about it. There was an array in every single dragon jade that could save the user one time. Within a hidden cave outside the forbidden Black Wind Canyon in the Imperial Tombs, there were 4 figures. Old Ying, what should we do? The 9th Prince asked. The wind of darkness in the Black Wind Canyon has become weaker. Jinkai spread his divine sense and felt a group of 3 people enter. Old Ying's soul eye scanned over the group, and he revealed a helpless expression. Although they had 4 people here, Josuer's battle power was low, and even though Jinkai seemed steady, he had lost confidence in himself due to the pressure. This meant that the 9th Prince couldn't enter with them either. While the princes could use draconic providence to increase their strength and fight against those with higher cultivations, there was no life-saving hidden array in the Pseudo-Crown Prince seal. The Pseudo-Crown Prince seal could only connect to the Imperial Grand Hall in the outside world, and once a prince used the Pseudo-Crown Prince seal to admit defeat or ask for help, the prince and all his team members would lose their right to participate in the Crown Prince trials and would be forced out. This also meant that the princes were usually the main targets. As soon as they used the Pseudo-Crown Prince seal to ask for help, all his team members would be sent out as well. 9th Prince, you can't enter, Old Ying said in a certain tone. I know. The 9th Prince obviously understood and felt somewhat helpless. The princes were the main protagonists in the Crown Prince trial. They had the ability to wield draconic providence, but they were also the main targets of all other forces. If there weren't many opponents, he and Old Ying would be a strong battle power that could change the tide. However, if there were a lot of enemies around, the 9th Prince would become a giant target. While the difficulty of the Black Wind Canyon has dropped, There's also the fact that Princess Josuer has already used the array within her dragon jade, Old Ying analyzed and said. There was only one life-saving array within the dragon jade. If someone had already used it and then entered a forbidden place, that was simply courting death. On top of that, Josuer was just a doctor, not some fighting expert. That leaves Old Ying and me. Jing Kai's expression was grim, he didn't feel confident at all. Their combined strength was just too low. Putting aside the dangers of the Black Wind Canyon itself, they didn't even have the ability to fight against other groups. There was no point in entering the Forbidden Grounds either way. Why don't we give up on the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground? There's no need to take this risk, Josuer suggested. The wind of darkness in the Black Wind Canyon was occasionally strong and occasionally weak, but even the weakened wind was still more difficult than other areas. And since the overall strength of their group was on the weak side, the ninth prince couldn't reveal himself. Just as they were pondering what to do. Huang tilde. A light started to flash ahead of the ninth prince, and a golden array spread. Everyone's expression was grim, they knew that someone was using the array to escape danger. Zhaofeng? Old Ying and company let out a breath. Josuer had already told them about how Zhaofeng had met the group from Nine Darkness Palace. If someone from the third group had to escape something as well, the ninth prince's situation would be terrible. Zhaofeng, you've come as well? I was forced to use the array by Nine Darkness Palace, Josuer said as hatred flashed through her eyes. Nine Darkness Palace supported the 13th prince. I met Sacred Lord Black Demon and had to use the array, Zhaofeng said directly. Sacred Lord Black Demon. Old Ying and company were stunned. Sacred Lord Black Demon was a mystic light realm genius of Nine Darkness Palace, and his true strength was almost at the level of an early-stage Sacred Lord. He was one of the strongest people in this trial. There was simply nothing Zhaofeng and Josuer could do apart from using their array if they met him. If Old Ying's group had met Sacred Lord Black Demon, they would most likely lose even if the ninth prince used all his draconic providence to make himself stronger. There's nothing you can do about that, but why did you go to such a dangerous inheritance in the first place? Jing Kai asked. He felt that Zhaofeng was a bit arrogant. If Zhaofeng hadn't gone for the Imperial Sky inheritance to begin with, then none of this would have happened. A beast tamer and a doctor going to the inheritance of a late-stage Sacred Lord, were they trying to kill themselves? Let's not talk about that. Zhaofeng, what do you think about this forbidden ground? Old Ying stopped Jing Kai and looked at Zhaofeng. He didn't know exactly how strong Zhaofeng was, but he could roughly estimate that he shouldn't be weaker than normal Sacred Lords. Zhaofeng's other aspects were also extremely outstanding. With the addition of Zhaofeng, their overall strength wasn't so bad anymore. Zhaofeng looked into the distance, seeing the terrain surrounded by black tornadoes, and understood. While the danger of the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground had been reduced, it was still a forbidden ground. Not many people had gone through here, meaning that there was still a lot of fortune. The three of us will go in. Josuer and the ninth prince will remain behind, but this place isn't hidden well enough. Zhaofeng soon said what he thought. Old Ying's eyes lit up. His thoughts were the same as Zhaofeng's. If Zhaofeng dared to go the Imperial Sky inheritance with Josuer, then there was no reason for him to not dare going to the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground when it was right in front of him. There's a more well-hidden place? Old Ying was slightly puzzled. He had spent a lot of time to find this place, and from his point of view, it was already extremely well hidden. If the ninth prince and Josuer were to remain hiding away from the rest of the group, they had to be in a safe place. Josuer's battle power was extremely low, so the ninth prince would have to protect himself and Josuer at the same time. Yeah, right over there. Zhaofeng pointed into the distance and Old Ying followed his finger. That really is a good place. Old Ying's soul eye sparkled. The place that Zhaofeng pointed out was at the edge of the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground, but due to the landscape and how it curved in, it wasn't affected by the wind of darkness. Furthermore, since it was so close to the Black Wind Canyon, most people wouldn't get near it or even think that there was someone hiding there. The wind of darkness also had the ability to block spiritual and divine senses. It would help cover the ninth prince, and it was a safe and stealthy place. Old Ying looked at Zhaofeng with an even deeper gaze. He couldn't understand how Zhaofeng discovered such a place in an instant. Okay, then that's that. Jing Kai and Zhaofeng will follow me into the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground while the ninth prince and Josuer will go hide over there. Old Ying spoke very fast. Since they decided to enter the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground, They had to use their time wisely. Jing Kai was slightly uncertain and wanted to say something, but he didn't do so after seeing Old Ying's confident look. From his point of view, an extra beast tamer didn't give their group much of an advantage. While they would have the help of the beast tamer's spiritual pets, they also needed to protect the beast tamer. Zhao Feng, first, give the draconic providence in your dragon jade to the 9th prince, Old Ying suddenly said before they were about to take action. Okay. Zhao Feng didn't really care. Draconic providence wasn't of much use to him anyway, and giving it to the 9th prince would increase the latter's chances of survival. Eh? Your dragon jade? Jing Kai was surprised. The dragon jade in Zhao Feng's hand was bright and smooth, and the outline of a dragon flashed, meaning that there was a plentiful supply of draconic providence within it. The light that Zhou Suer's dragon jade gave off already surprised the three of them, but Zhao Feng's dragon jade was even brighter. I was pretty lucky and managed to conquer a few early-stage Sacred Lord inheritances. Zhao Feng smiled. He hadn't used any draconic providence on himself after entering the Imperial tombs, so he obviously had more than Zhou Suer. The 9th prince felt confident when he looked at Zhao Feng. He took out his pseudo-crown prince seal to transfer the draconic providence. Jing Kai's face went green. Old Ying and he had passed a couple tattered inheritances smoothly and thought that they were the group with the most rewards, but Zhao Feng and Zhou Suer, a beast tamer and a doctor, had passed through several inheritances. Their luck was just way too good. Okay, let's go. Old Ying led Zhao Feng and Jing Kai and charged out. They first inspected their surroundings, and after making sure there was no one around, told the 9th prince and Zhou Suer to move to the new hiding spot. Boom. 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 Gusts of wind blew across the Black Wind Canyon forbidden ground like claws and fangs. After entering, they felt a limitless aura of darkness that suppressed them. Heaven and earth seemed to change instantly from day to night. The wind of darkness has the ability to erode. Use your true yuan to protect your bodies, Old Ying said. Updated by Box Novel. If it wasn't for the fact that the Black Wind Canyon forbidden ground had become weaker, just this random wind of darkness would be able to easily kill peak tier kings. The further one went, the stronger the wind. Eventually, even a sacred lord wouldn't be able to withstand it. Chapter 945, Easy. The wind of darkness has the ability to erode. Use your true yuan to protect your bodies, Old Ying said. If it wasn't for the fact that the Black Wind Canyon forbidden ground had become weaker, just this random wind of darkness would be able to easily kill peak tier kings. The further one went, the stronger the wind. Eventually, even a sacred lord wouldn't be able to withstand it. The entire Black Wind Canyon was dark, and the howl of the wind was like the cries of wolves. When the black wind touched the true yuan protecting Zhao Feng's body, a part of it passed through the true yuan and entered Zhao Feng's body. This wind of darkness has an air of yin that can directly enter the soul. Zhao Feng was surprised. The forbidden grounds in the imperial tombs were indeed not to be underestimated. Who knew what other dangers there were apart from the wind of darkness? That's right, if one's willpower isn't strong enough, the air of yin might awaken the evil desires within the bottom of their hearts and change their personality, Old Ying added. This wind of darkness has an ability like that? Jing Kai started to tremble and felt that this place was evil. The trio were extremely careful when entering the Black Wind Canyon, and because of the black wind, they couldn't see much around them. This even included Zhao Feng's left eye. It was heavily restricted unless Zhao Feng circulated the ability of his golden eye, but that would use up too much energy. Yin wind grass. Jing Kai suddenly said. They looked carefully and indeed saw a few pieces of yin wind grass in a crack between some rocks not far away. While yin wind grass wasn't extremely high grade, they were rather rare, and they were very useful for those that cultivated the elements of yin, wind, and evil. Herbs that contained the elements of wind and yin together were extremely rare in the continent zone. Zhao Feng walked forward and started to pluck them. Zhao Feng, the yin wind grass has been heavily affected by the wind of darkness and contains great yin power. I know you cultivate a wind elemental technique, but it's hard to get rid of this air of yin, Old Ying warned. Old Ying had seen Zhao Feng get rid of some poison in the Saint Herb Pavilion, but in that instance, the Sky Rainbow Fire Beehive had only merged with the poison accidentally. The yin wind grass of the Black Wind Canyon had grown here from the start and had been mutated by the wind of darkness. The air of yin within it would be hard to get rid of. I know, Zhao Feng replied. He saw some more ahead and went forward to pluck them too. Zhao Feng wasn't scared of this measly air of yin given the level of his soul and the power of God Tribulation Lightning. If this air of yin was strong enough, it could even refine his willpower. Old Ying, if he doesn't want to listen, then don't bother. Jing Kai shook his head. He didn't like how Zhao Feng ignored Old Ying's warning. Old Ying had led the ninth prince and Jing Kai to perfectly pass through 2 inheritances while dodging all the dangers. Jing Kai really admired Old Ying's strength and experience. The only thing he didn't understand was why Old Ying believed in Zhao Feng so much. They were originally planning to leave the Black Wind Canyon Forbidden Ground, but Old Ying suddenly changed his decision when Zhao Feng arrived. From Jing Kai's point of view, an extra Zhao Feng wasn't enough to handle the danger of the Black Wind Canyon. Zhao Feng felt a weird soul undulation, and his left eye caught sight of a black figure hiding in the black winds ahead. Watch out! Old Ying and Jing Kai also sensed it and charged forward. Wu tilde. A cold roar sounded from the nearby black wind, and a condensed wind swept toward Zhao Feng. The outline of a snarling mouth could be seen within the black wind. Old Ying immediately circulated his true yuan and jumped into the air while pointing out with his finger. Whoosh! A dark beam of light shot out from Old Ying's finger, which merged into the air and hit the ball of black wind. Bam! The ball of black wind turned into a human-like monster that now lay on the ground. It had an ugly expression, and its teeth grinded against each other as if it hadn't eaten in a long time. What? What is this monster? Jing Kai started to shake, and he immediately circulated his true yuan, creating countless beams of golden light. Whoosh! 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 Countless beams of golden light shot toward the black monster. Bam! Bam! Several beams of golden light stabbed into the monster's body, but it didn't have much of an effect. Wu tilde. The black monster seemed to become angry, and it roared at Jing Kai. A gust of even stronger black wind merged with the black wind nearby and swept toward Jing Kai. Why isn't it effective? Jing Kai exclaimed in surprise and waved his left hand. A large vine shot out from the ground and blocked the black wind, but the air of yin that could affect souls passed directly through the vine and landed on Jing Kai's soul, causing it to feel cold and start to hurt. This is a black wind yin ghost, formed by the black wind and the soul of the Black Wind Canyon. Only soul attacks are effective against it, Old Ying said and pointed out another few times. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dark beams of light merged into the air and instantly landed on the Black Wind Yin ghost. After a series of screams, the Black Wind Yin ghost faded away and turned into uncountable bits of yin air. After seeing Old Ying get rid of the Black Wind Yin ghost, Zhao Feng put away the yin wind grass and slowly stood up. These Black Wind Yin ghosts were unique, and their overall strength was comparable to normal kings, but they could unleash more power in this unique environment. You're just a beast tamer, don't get too far away from us. Jing Kai yelled at Zhao Feng. From his perspective, Zhao Feng was so scared by the Black Wind Yin ghost just now that he didn't even dare to move. If it weren't for Old Ying and himself, the result would have been unimaginable. These black stones also contain a lot of yin and wind. Zhao Feng's left eye locked onto a small black stone that was revealed on stone wall nearby. You. Jing Kai's eyes seethed with anger after seeing Zhao Feng completely ignore him. Boom. These monsters are so troublesome. The sound of fighting could be heard not far away. It was obvious that the other group had also met the Black Wind Yin ghosts. All the experts that had entered this place were at the peak amongst those of the same cultivation. Use soul attacks. They also found the weakness of the Black Wind Yin ghosts and instantly finished them off. An elder saw several figures nearby and called out to them, "May I know which prince's team you are from? The fortune of the Black Wind Canyon is what's most important. Are you willing to team up with us?" Old Ying slowly approached them. Indeed, we can look out for each other. There was a group of 3 ahead of them. They were members of the 6th Prince's team. The leader was the Regulations Elder of a 3-star power known as the Glass Door, and he was a quasi-sacred lord. The other 2 were a young emperor and another quasi-sacred lord. So, it's Old Ying. The leading elder in purple was full of smiles. Why is there a king here? The young emperor was surprised. From his point of view, Old Ying's group was slightly weak, and the king probably had a defensive soul treasure on him to be able to enter this place. The other quasi-sacred lord also glanced at Zhao Feng, but they didn't say anything. We found a stone cave and were just about to enter it, but we met a lot of Black Wind Yin ghosts before we could. The elder in purple robes had a faint smile. It was obvious what his intentions were. Then let's go in together. Old Ying's expression remained the same. If there was no danger involved, would they invite them? Old Ying already knew his intentions. Under the guidance of the elder in purple robes, the group soon saw a stone entrance after a couple steps. This time, no black wind yin ghosts charged out, and the group carefully stepped into it. The instant they entered it, a strong surge of yin air washed over their souls. The young emperor instantly screamed in pain, while Jinkai wasn't much better, his face twisted and struggled. The three quasi-sacred lords had stronger souls and might have had some defensive soul treasures as well, so the air of yin wasn't very effective on them. Zhao Feng immediately stood out, catching the attention of the purple-clad elder and the other quasi-sacred lord. The purple elder gave a glance toward Zhao Feng. The expression of this late-stage King Jr. hasn't changed. Looks like his defensive soul treasure isn't normal. Is this the power of a little world? Old Ying's voice sounded. Could it be that this is the inheritance of a sacred lord? The elder in purple directed his attention away from Zhao Feng and started to inspect it closely. The strength of a sacred lord who was able to set up an inheritance in the Black Wind Canyon was definitely not simple, and the tests they left behind would also be rather difficult. The group's speed instantly increased. Almost all of the inheritances of late-stage Mystic Light Realm sacred lords were in the hands of the top 5 princes. Their group was too weak, and it was hard to receive a cut of whatever they did manage to find. Old Ying's group was the same. They hadn't been to any inheritances of a late-stage sacred lord. A dark area of snow and ice appeared in front of them before they even managed to take a few steps. In the center of the world of snow and ice was a tattered and broken castle of ice. There's no test? Old Ying's voice was raspy. This little world inheritance was different from the ones he had been in before. There was no noise at all. This little world is already broken. The tests left behind have most likely been destroyed as well. The elder in purple scanned over the place. They didn't find anything suspicious, so they carefully headed toward the ice castle. Inheritance sacred weapon. The young emperor saw an item through the cracks of the broken ice castle and charged forward. The elder in purple had a calm expression and didn't stop him. Everyone watched as the young emperor easily obtained a black hammer and put it into his interspatial storage item. The eyebrows of Old Ying and the elder in purple furrowed. They felt that something was wrong. The group increased their speed and entered the ice castle. Countless tattered old books were placed on the right side of the ice castle, and there were some weapons on the left. At the very center of the ice castle was a large crystalline blue coffin. A skeleton lay in it, and next to the skeleton was a dark golden ring. The resources of an entire inheritance. The elder in purple was stunned. All of this had been too simple. They reached the treasury of a sacred lord's inheritance without any resistance. He couldn't believe it. At the same time, he started to regret inviting Old Ying and company. They originally thought that the stone cave would be full of danger. I led all of you into this little world inheritance, and none of you put in any effort. We take 70% while you get 30%. The elder in purple smiled faintly at Old Ying and spoke with a decisive tone. He had no intention of negotiating. The two groups instantly looked at one another and became silent. The elder in purple robes and company all had faint cold smiles. Updated by Box Novel. Old Ying, your group is just too weak, or else 50-50 would have been fine too. The elder in purple didn't hide it anymore. He had 2 quasi-sacred lords and 1 emperor in his group. No matter how he looked at it, they were stronger than Old Ying's group.